The hosts feel it would be a little unkind to present this podcast without just a word of friendly warning. We are about to unfold the story of Frankenstein, a man of science who sought to create a man after his own image without reckoning upon God. It is one of the strangest tales ever told. It deals with the two great mysteries of creation, life and death. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you. So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now's your chance to. Well, we've warned you.
Hello, and welcome once again to the Frankencast. I'm the mad scientist, Anthony Bowman. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm joined as always by...
the guy who got lugged up on the yardarm and then struck by lightning and turned into a skeleton, that is Eric Velasquez. My pronouns are also he, him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about that here a little bit.
Yep.
So, welcome to our first part 2 episode where we're talking about the second half of Frankenstein, the True Story.
I'm excited.
Yeah. I think it aired over 2 nights originally is why, it's cut in half, but worked out for us because 3 hours is a long movie.
That's a long movie.
But yeah, this picks up pretty much right where it left off. We've got the creature waking up on the shore, walking off down the beach.
Well, first we get the 5-minute recap, of course, because,
Oh, of course, yeah, you got to have that. The good previously on stuff that you need when you got a TV show. But yeah, after he walks down the beach, he comes upon a blind man in the woods with his dog. We find out his name is Lacey.
Right, not D. Lacey, just Lacey.
Yeah, yeah. And the dog picks up on the weirdness of the creature, and he kind of growls, but the man's like, oh, don't pay any attention to him. So he's friendly, greets the creature. Of course, he's blind, but he shakes his hand and is like, you have very powerful hands, but they're very cold.
Right, there's a lot of talk of cold hands in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he even says that, the old cold hands, warm heart saying at some point in there. Mm-hmm. And, he tries to touch the creature's face, and he, pulls back, doesn't want him to do that.
Yeah, of course.
And even though the creature, we've had him talk a bunch, he's still kind of, he doesn't really say anything in this scene. The man kind of, guides the conversation and is like, well, why don't you come back to my place, and he just kind of follows along without really talking.
Yeah. Is it so much that he didn't want to talk necessarily, or that the old man wouldn't let him talk as he kept going on? I did enjoy that bit, though. Where he's like, I'll do enough talking for the both of us.
And he tells the creature that he's got a daughter named Agatha. Mm-hmm. And, he ends up leading the creature into his little cottage, gives him some dry clothes, because, of course, he just washed up on the beach. And he gets out his violin. Mm-hmm. So, we get, as we talked about, he plays several different instruments depending on the version we're talking about. But in this case, it's the violin. And, plays a little bit. And, of course, the creature loves the music.
Yeah.
And in this case, we get Felix and Agatha. They both arrive, and you hear a carriage pull up outside. Lacey goes out to greet them, and he's like, you'll love my family, they're great. But while he's outside, the creature sneaks out the back door.
And of course he tells them, hey, we've got a new friend inside. But also, this Felix and Agatha, they're not brother and sister, it doesn't seem like. It seems like there's something more.
Yeah, I think Felix is a hired hand or something around their sharecrop farm.
Right.
And yeah, Felix and Agatha have a little bit of a romance kind of going on.
Poor Safi, I wonder what happened to her in this version.
I guess they just decided to combine Safi and Agatha into one character.
Fair enough.
If they'd had them both, the movie would have been 4 hours.
Right. Oh, no.
But yeah, so Lacey brings his family in and is like, oh, I guess he disappeared. So they sit down to eat dinner anyway, and the creature, watches them from outside.
And then, Agatha commences into their Bible reading session for the evening, and they actually go into the discussion of the story of Legion being cast out from a man in the Bible.
Yeah, I thought that was we get a lot of Paradise Lost stuff in here, and, so that kind of religious imagery with Adam and Lucifer cast down and all that. But the Legion reference, I don't know that I've seen that in any other one, and it makes so much sense. It's it's a really nice little touch here,
especially in this version.
And it comes up a couple of times, like it's first introduced right here. She reads the specific line, "My name is Legion, for we are many." That will get echoed a couple of times.
Yeah, the monster kind of likes that line, right?
Yeah. I think he repeats it right then, like to himself, and then it comes up again later.
Well, our good dog Toby knows that the monster is there and starts growling automatically and alerts the family.
Yeah, and so again, Lacey steps out back to invite him in, but he has disappeared. He heard the dog bark and knew what was going on, so he gets away. And Lacey says it's a shame. I know he has some kind of sickness or trouble, and I want to help him. So we've got this really kind-hearted man that the blindness helps, of course, but he seems like he might have been willing to give the creature a chance no matter what.
Right.
So then we get the creature. He is alone under a tree. He's eating, and he's quoting that same "My name is Legion" bit again, just to himself. So yeah, he's definitely that really resonated with him, and he's hanging on to that little quote.
Oh yeah, no doubt. It's a good quote. Yeah, but the next day we got Agatha, who's going out to bring Felix his food out in the field where he's working right now.
Don't we get that scene with the creature going in the house first? He carries the dog in?
You're right. You are correct. I'm sorry.
Yeah, because that's the creature somehow gets the dog now is trusting the creature because he's carrying him in his arms, and he goes into the house. He thinks it's empty, and he finds the Bible and tries to read through it, actually looking at the book, and then he hears Agatha in the back room, and he's uh-oh. But then she leaves out the back door, and that's where she heads over and goes to meet Felix. But the creature kind of he's curious, he doesn't trust, obviously she can see, so he's not safe with her.
Right.
But he kind of, he wants to know what she's up to, so he follows her.
He's taking a fondness for Agatha a little bit.
So he watches this whole scene, the one that you were talking about. So she arrives and brings some lunch to Felix out in the field.
They have a lovely little conversation where they get to flirt a little bit, and Felix gets to drink a big bottle of wine.
And I think they even kiss at some point, and the creature is watching all of this unfold.
Absolutely.
Then they decide they're gonna go to the market. So I guess their kind of situation is that they're farming whatever they can each day and taking it to the market in the evening to try to get a little bit of money.
And they go ahead and leave out on the carriage, and that's when our good friend the monster decides it's his turn to come inside and hang out with Lacey. However, turns out they don't get too far away before they're like, "Hey, I think our friend just arrived at home. Let's loop back around."
Yeah, so this really shortens the whole kind of window of time at the cottage. Yeah, so the creature's listening to the violin, and Felix and Agatha, they come around the back, and then they kind of whisper, and they're like, "Actually, you go to the front, I'll come in the back, and then we'll catch him whichever way he goes."
Yeah, we'll give him a surprise pincer, which is a very sane and rational thing to do with someone you don't know.
And the thing here is they're not. They're genuinely curious about their dad's Agatha's dad's new friend. They're not trying to antagonize him, but at the same time they are kind of coming up with this clever maneuver so that he can't escape. So of course Felix comes in the front door, which scares the creature. He tries to turn around and run out the back door. That's when Agatha tries to come in, so he crashes into her. She obviously sees this giant monster that's run into her. She screams, and then Felix grabs a big chunk of firewood, tries to attack the creature with it.
Well, and you know what happens when you attack a creature. It doesn't go well for you. So poor Felix gets slammed against the wall.
Yeah, and it's one of those classic bits where he hits the wall at the back of his head and then slides down slowly, leaving a trail of blood. So he hit his head real hard.
Yeah, basically that's the universal signal for this guy just died.
Yeah. So then Agatha wakes up from fainting and finds that Felix has died, and then she runs outside, and the creature sees her and tries to call out obviously this all happened as an accident or whatever, and he still feels this attachment to her, and he kind of calls to her, and she runs out in the middle of the road and tries to flag down a carriage that's coming.
Right, but whereas she could have just kept her eyes forward looking at the carriage, she looks away, and of course she gets run over by the carriage.
Yeah, and this is one of those dummy scenes.
Right,
again.
yeah.
We get to see her get run over by the carriage, and you can tell it's a dummy, but it's still pretty effective, seeing seeing these carriage wheels go over this person.
Yeah.
So then that leaves Felix and Agatha both killed, and the creature like picks up her body and carries her back to Victor's lab, but it turns out it's not Victor's lab anymore.
No. It turns out someone else has moved in the meantime. That would be our good friend Polidori, and he's redecorated the entire place.
Yeah, he's got a very strange sense of decoration too. I guess with like the hypnotism and stuff, like they're trying to make him seem like he's really into like Eastern mysticism.
Yeah.
It's got a more Eastern vibe, and then of course he also has two henchmen who are he eventually says they're Chinese, but it's like two kind of Asian guys, and they're all kind of in like a little bit more traditional Asian type clothing even. Like it's a very different vibe from when it was Victor's lab.
Right. He definitely has taken that Eastern mysticism to another level here. Everything's with plush pillows, everything's silk.
And Polidori he kind of acts like he expected the creature to arrive at some point. And he's like, oh, come on in. Victor's not here anymore. I took over. But I do know everybody in town is talking about, what's going on here with Agatha. So why don't you set her down and we'll take a look and see what we could do.
Yeah, and then he has his henchmen basically lug her body. Well, he tries to have his henchmen lug her body down into, I guess, the cellar. He wanted to move her somewhere cold. But, of course, the monster's not having it initially. He's like, nah, you don't touch her.
Yeah. Polidori wants to examine her body, and he wants to lift up her dress a little bit, and the creature gets really defensive about it, and he's like, Polidori says, I have no use for delicacy, particularly from monsters.
Right. Polidori's pretty good as a villain here.
Yeah. So he uses his hypnotism and manages to put the creature under. At first, the creature quotes the Bible verse again. I think Polidori asks, "Who are you?" And he's like, "My name is Legion, for we are many."
Yeah, and then Polidori's like, "Wait a second. You're comprised of your constituent parts. Who else is in there with you?"
And then we get Polidori just speaking directly to Clerval. Mm-hmm. They do voice sync and everything, so it's like the actor who played Clerval doing the voice.
And he even calls Polidori Polly Dolly. That's his nickname for Polidori.
Yeah, it kind of mocks him a little bit. Mm-hmm. But Polidori is like, the reason that this is all messed up the way it is and the creature's reverting to this sort of monstrous form is that using electrical shocks was like a lazy shortcut, which caused the process to reverse at some point.
Yeah, your solar power wasn't good enough.
Yeah, and so Polidori's like, I can't help you. It's too late. You are what you are. Not even God can help you.
But of course we can help Agatha out, right?
Yeah, so he's got a plan for that. But first Polidori offers the creature some food. They sit down, but the creature kind of he shies away from the henchmen. He doesn't want them to see, he's still dealing with his appearance.
Well, don't worry about that, because Polidori is going to make a reverse racism.
We look
the same.
He's like, you don't need to be embarrassed. To them, we all look alike.
Mm-hmm. Well,
yeah.
All right.
So that does kind of comfort the creature in a way, and he sits down and eats. And then we cut away to Victor and Elizabeth. They're getting married, and it's sort of the end of the ceremony, and they're kind of rolling into the reception kind of thing. And Polidori shows up to crash the wedding.
In the fanciest way possible.
Oh, yeah. So the thing that I mentioned at the beginning of last episode where I had that weird introduction thing, it came from this scene. So Polidori kind of pulls up in this grand coach and gets out, and he's like, I'm Polidori to the valet guy or whatever.
Hey, you're not on the list.
Yeah. But in that little weird intro, he looks right at the camera and is like, I'm not Polidori yet, and they did that. But yeah, they just kind of brought that from this moment for some reason. But yeah, like you said, the valet's like, you're not on the list, and he's like, yeah, I don't expect to be, but I'm going in anyway.
It would be very odd if I were.
And so he gets inside, and Victor kind of confronts him and is like, what are you doing here? I don't want anything else to do with you. Polidori's like, I think you're going to want to hear what I have to say. Mm-hmm. He tells him basically I have this woman who has been killed and needs to be revived, and I need your help. You need to be involved in this. You're going to want to be a part of this. And he, in fact, Victor's like, why do you need my help if you're so good at all this?
Well, of course, Polidori has laid down his hat at this point, and he motions towards the hat, and he's like, I can't pick this up. And you know why he can't pick it up?
Yeah, so he has Victor take off his gloves, and one of his hands is just completely gone. It's just a stump.
Right.
That he's just got a prosthetic hand in a glove that just kind of slides over. And then the other hand hand is like almost like a skeleton hand. It's like eaten away. There's still fingers and everything, but they're no longer functional.
Yeah, he had an accident with some chemicals possibly related to lightning. That's why he has the fear of lightning.
Yeah, so he's got all the experience. He knows what to do to revive Agatha, but he can't physically do it with the hands he has. So, we had one of the Hammer Frankensteins had a similar kind of thing where Victor had to use his, his assistant. I think that was the last one, wasn't it? Monster from Hell?
It's not that, yeah. I believe that is correct.
Yeah, and, the same thing where he has, like, the black leather gloves, and, so Polidori is kind of, he needs this collaboration to get things accomplished.
Yeah, Victor will be his hands, so to speak.
Yeah, and Victor is still kind of, like, not really interested, and then Polidori's like, so here's what's up. Like, the dead lady I have, she was killed by your creation, and people are trying to figure out what's going on with her, so there's some heat on this, and also the creature's at my lab as well, and if you don't come back and help me, I'm just gonna go drop him off. Or no, he's not even in the lab. He's in the carriage.
Well, no,
right?
he's like I have a special guest I need you to see. Doesn't even tell him the monster's there.
That's right, yeah. And so he sees him out in the carriage and is like, I will just leave him here and go. You can try to explain all of that to everyone here at the party.
The monster's wearing this wild, like, masquerade mask on a stick. What are those called? Like, they're not, they're masks, but what type of masks? I forget.
Yeah, are they not just called masquerade masks? Is there another name for them?
Maybe they are, I don't know. I'm not that fancy. Anyway.
But it's like the full kind of porcelain one that you often, like, now you see at, like, craft stores that people paint and stuff,
right.
Like it's, but, it has a little bit of, this one does already have, like, a face kind of painted on it. It's just creepy, and he's sort of using it to, like, not let anyone see his face, basically.
Yeah. Of course, because one of his footmen suggested that for Polidori. He was like, maybe you don't want this guy just walking around without a mask.
Yeah. So Victor's, like, pretty much blackmailed into having to help.
Right.
We cut to, like, after the wedding, Victor and Elizabeth are in a carriage. They're, like, leaving, presumably for their honeymoon, but they're arguing.
Yeah, Liz ain't happy.
Yeah.
Victor's got somewhere to be tonight, and it's not in their bedroom.
Yeah. And, yeah, Victor's like, I promise, I have to take care of this. It's really, really important. Otherwise, I wouldn't do this if it wasn't absolutely necessary. I'll be back as soon as I possibly can.
Yeah, I'll make it up to you, baby.
Yeah. And so their carriage meets up with Polidori's and stops, and they kind of, Victor gets out of one and gets into the other.
Right. And, of course, whenever they arrive at Polidori's mansion now, as opposed to Victor's lab, Polidori immediately mentions that, yeah, you can tell I've redecorated the whole place. Pretty much the moment you left, I just came in and took over via squatter rights.
Yeah. And he also shows Victor Agatha's head, which is in a jar. It seems like with her getting run over, her head was preservable, but everything else was kind of a wash. And he's got another, I think it seems like with Agatha, it is just a head and a whole body.
Right.
Like, that's not like a whole series of parts.
Right.
But yeah, so he's got a giant tank that has a headless body, and, that they're going to join them together.
I love that at this point the monster's still kind of like, hey, don't touch the head. But Polidori goes over to him and he's like, hey, listen, violence may be unavoidable, but clumsiness is inexcusable.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and so then we get, like, the scene with Victor sort of, like, surgically attaching the head to the body, and then they put it back in the tank of liquid, and then we see, Polidori's methods, which are very, very different than, Clerval and Frankenstein's.
Yeah, he's very much an alchemist.
Yeah, it's just like they're pouring various colored liquids into the water, basically, and it, you just get that really cool effect that, what happens when you drop food coloring in water,
right.
And it spreads slowly and, swirls, and, it looks very dramatic and cool. So it's a very different interpretation that is just also cool in a different way.
Yeah, and I like how, like, in kind of the middle of the process, they have, like, this little teaspoon or tablespoon of some powder, presumably pure sodium, and they just dump it in and it just starts sparking and fire breaks out.
Yeah, like the water across the tank just catches fire. Mm-hmm. It looks like when, like, oil's on water and burns.
Yeah, but don't worry about it. The body's fine.
Yeah, because she's, like, floating under the water. Mm-hmm. But, obviously all the fire scares the creature, and, he's kind of freaking out. But eventually it burns out, and the female creature comes to life, and they're able to get her out of the tank and everything.
Yeah.
And then we get a scene with Victor and Polidori discussing her as she sleeps. So it's kind of echoing back to the first part where Victor watched his creature asleep. But in this case, it's kind of funny, you know, like Victor had this whole romance in the last movie, but we never got a name for the creature.
Right.
And here Polidori right away is like, you know, I've made this woman, like she's a real flesh and blood living human being. So the first thing he thinks is like, I need to give her a name.
Right.
He decides to name her Prima.
The first, right?
Yeah. And so now that she's alive and everything's fine, like Victor is able to go about what he wants to do with his life. So it just kind of cuts away to some time has passed and Victor and Elizabeth are arriving home from their honeymoon.
Right. And immediately we cut to Polidori, who's talking to Elizabeth's mom.
Yeah, while they've been away on their honeymoon, he just like crept into that house and just like befriends her family and is like, I'm one of Victor's old friends. He'll be so glad to see me.
Well, we'll find out he did a little bit more than that here in a bit. But as soon as Victor steps out, wait a second, he's evil now. Victor's evil because he has a goatee. This is literally the only time he has the goatee in this entire movie.
Yeah, and there's like at first, like, Elizabeth's mom makes no mention of it, and then she's like, oh, wait, I didn't even notice, but you've grown a beard.
Yep, and then he shaves it off in the next.
Yeah, I guess that's just supposed to be like, a lot of time has passed.
Right, basically.
He had beard growing time.
Right, but we've got the introduction of Polidori, and, you know, he's officially, like, talking to Elizabeth now, along with Victor, and he's like, hey, I've got someone you really need to meet, Victor. It's this little girl named Prima. She's my ward.
Yeah. Apparently, like, he's spent a while now with Elizabeth's family, ingratiating himself and Prima, and it turns out, like, Polidori is going to be away for a while, and Prima is going to be staying with Elizabeth's family. She's got, it seems like a debutante ball kind of thing coming, some sort of, like, coming out party where she's going to be shown to the community.
Right.
She's going to be staying with them until after the ball.
Yeah, and she's given the explicit order to do everything Liz does. So the first thing she does is remove an earring.
Oh, yeah, and then, Elizabeth realizes she's missing one, and she's like, oh, it must have lost it on the journey or something.
Right. And that's when we get kind of an automatic, like, Liz don't like her because she's literally mimicking everything Elizabeth does.
Yeah, and it definitely, like, it seems like Polidori is just messing with Victor just for fun. Like there's no real reason to be doing this.
Well, there is a reason. He's using this as a training moment for his later plans that we'll talk about.
Yeah. And Prima is pretty evil right out of the gate, too. Like, the next scene is, like, everybody at dinner, and Prima just, like, faints.
Well, are we going to talk about when Elizabeth's mom's brushing her hair and discusses how she had a headache until Polidori came by, and, you know, she remembers something bright, basically implying that Polidori hypnotized the mom into believing she had a headache and he fixed it.
Yeah. I forgot about that little moment. But then, it's like later that evening, and so Prima just faints at dinner, and Victor's like, you know, Victor's the doctor, of course, so he helps her to her room, gets her into bed, and then she just immediately wakes up, and, like, it's clear that she faked this whole spell just to get Victor alone.
And kiss him.
Yeah, and she kisses him, and Victor, like, is taken aback by this, and she starts, you know, like you said, she's been told to kind of, like, imitate Elizabeth. In this case, she, like, starts mimicking her voice and sort of mocking her and everything.
Right.
Like, the level of imitation, it's not, like, learning, it's, like, you know, it's malicious.
Yeah. Basically, the feigning thing was her mimicking someone else she saw. We never saw it. It was just mentioned. But yeah, so at one point, Elizabeth is actually playing the piano, and that's when...
Oh, yeah, that part's so creepy.
Right. And that's when, I almost call her Polidori, Prima comes in, and she's like, hey, can I play? Well, whenever she startles Liz, she, you know, bangs on the piano, and it makes a discordant sound. But then, you know, Prima starts playing it the exact same way, and then when she gets to that part, she also just slams it down, and she starts laughing at Elizabeth a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's, you know, they've just used the same recording, but, like, yeah, it's just the level of perfect, like, robotic recreation that she achieves there is just kind of chilling.
Right, and that scares Elizabeth off, but not enough that Elizabeth completely leaves, because Prima just starts giggling again now that we know Elizabeth is pregnant. I believe they've mentioned it already. Turns out Prima has put a pillow under her dress to make herself look pregnant.
Yeah.
Yeah, Elizabeth didn't like that.
Not at all.
Right.
Yeah, we're seeing like the tension building between the two of them. Mm-hmm. Then we get a scene of the family at church, and everybody's like singing. They've all got their like hymn books open or whatever. But like most of the people in the church are kind of distracted, and they're all just watching Prima.
Yeah, and even Victor and Elizabeth gives him the side eye. She's like, "Really? We're, not only we just got married, and we're in church."
Yeah, and it seems like there's like one specific guy that we'll kind of meet later, like on the other side of the church, who's watching her. Mm-hmm. And it seems more like Victor I think he's observing her. He's not like watching her with attraction the way the other guy is.
Right.
But, to Elizabeth, he's still watching her, So there's definitely some like jealousy forming there as well. And then we get another just like terrifying scene with Prima.
Oh, yeah.
Again, like the whole thing with the original creature was that like he was like a good normal human to start with, and then something something to do with the process caused this slow reversion to like a monstrous form. But like whether Prima was just evil right away or if she's been taught to be evil by Polidori, but she's not like the creature. She is bad right away. Mm-hmm.
Well, she tries choking a cat.
Yeah, she has she sings this little song to this cat. I can't remember the exact words, but it's basically like, "You'll love me as long as I don't hurt you." Mm-hmm. And then she just chokes out this cat. And, the cat's like, scratching and clawing and trying to get away. And Elizabeth walks in before she can kill the cat. And, it does get away. And, Elizabeth's like, they're working on fitting your gown for the ball, so they need you.
But also, Prima is wearing Elizabeth's gown for the ball.
Yeah. So, yeah. And Elizabeth's like, what's going on? And she's like, oh, I was just trying it on. And, and then we see that she's got cuts on her hand from the cat, but her blood seems to be like purple.
Yeah, and coagulated already.
Yeah, and she just like looks Elizabeth like dead in the eyes and just starts like licking the blood off her hand, and it's super creepy.
Yep.
So then we cut to the dress fitting. It's a traditional, she's standing on the box and like they've got the seamstress like measuring and doing little stitches and stuff. Mm-hmm. And they want her to take off like this choker necklace that she's wearing.
Yeah. By the way, this gave me some really rough blue ribbon vibes. If you've ever read that story.
I was thinking the same thing.
I'm like, nope, I don't want nothing to do with this. Okay.
So she refuses to take it off, and they're like, oh, it must be because Polidori gave it to you, and it's sentimental. That makes sense.
Yeah, that's the reason.
Yeah, obviously, we know that, her head was attached, so there's scars under there.
Right.
And then the seamstress is like sewing, she's like hemming the dress. She's like down at the bottom, kind of doing some kind of stitches. Prima has like some sort of weird sort of flashback. I think she's like remembering being stitched together or something when she sees the needle going through the fabric.
Because she kind of acts like she's being choked a little bit, right?
Yeah, she puts her hands up to her neck where she was stitched together. Mm-hmm. And then it's like later that night, and Elizabeth gets up and sneaks out of bed. She waits until she thinks Victor's asleep, but Victor hears her and gets up and follows. And so, Elizabeth goes into Prima's room, and she does not have the choker on anymore. And she sees the neck scar, which obviously upsets her. But Victor gets in at the exact right moment and puts his hand over her mouth so she doesn't scream. Mm-hmm. And so like he kind of leads her away, and she's like crying, upset by something strange is going on, and she's like, you need to get her out of this house.
Right. So of course the next day we have Victor showing up with Polidori, and pretty much at this point Victor's like, listen, man, I get what you're doing. You're trying to kind of force us to do what you want by having Prima here or threatening to leave the monster here, so we need to cut this crap and just get this over with.
Yeah. Polidori promises that after the ball, he and Prima will leave for London, and Victor will never see them again. Mm-hmm. And as like a show of good faith, I guess, he shows him that he's still got the creature. He's been locked away this whole time, and he's like, I have a way that we can dispose of the creature, and then I won't have him for blackmail anymore, so you'll be free and clear. And so he's got this acid bath, and is going to just, similar to what we saw with the hand or the arm in the previous part, mm-hmm. He's gonna just burn the creature away with acid.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a good plan, right?
Yeah. And Polidori's like, he hypnotizes the creature and tries to get him to just walk and get into the tank.
But he won't listen to Polidori. Not completely.
Yeah, it's like while Victor's there, he's more loyal or obedient to Victor, and he's like, you're gonna have to tell him to do it. And Victor, is like, walk towards the tank, and he does. But as he gets to, right up there by the tank to like get in, Victor realizes that like he can't do it. He can't kill this creature.
Well, yeah, one of the henchmen tries to actually push the monster in with a stick, and that's when Victor cries out, "No!"
Yeah, so he he wakes the creature basically, and so the creature grabs that henchman and just
throws him in
the
acid bath.
So then like Polidori and the other henchman manage to kind of like get him trapped. He like goes down like this like flight of stairs down into like a cellar or something, and they just like throw a bunch of debris, like just like chairs and whatever on top of, like, just block him down there.
Well, not only that, but they throw a bunch of oil on top of it.
Yeah, and so they set fire to all this, and then Victor, Polidori, and the henchmen leave, and the lab like explodes. There's this huge, this big fireball and everything. So
yeah, nothing could have survived that.
Yeah, so the creature's been very in the ways we've seen in the past, where he gets knocked down inside of a lab that then goes up in flames.
Right.
They assume he's been burned up, and that's the last we'll see of the creature. While they're like watching all of this happen, like Polidori calls Victor a hypocrite.
Yeah, he mocks his dainty conscience for loving his creature only as long as it's beautiful.
Yeah, and then we just cut to the ball. So we're getting to where hopefully things are all gonna play out, and everybody's gonna part ways, and everybody will live happily ever after.
Right. Well, Victor's already kind of a little bit depressed because he's slouching in his chair with some champagne in hand.
Yeah, and Polidori's talking to him and kind of like unveils his sort of plan.
His master plan.
Yeah, which is that he doesn't want to be in a position of power. He wants to stay in the shadows behind the people in power and control and manipulate them.
Yeah, basically he's going to use Prima to get up to the higher-ups, and he's going to marry her off to hopefully some rich earl in London who's old and maybe about to die, and then he's going to use her as the mistress of a prince, and then maybe move on to greater parts of Europe. Like, this dude's got it all planned out already.
Yeah, like he's clearly planning on, like, for lack of a better term, he just wants to pimp her out and, use that influence to control things.
Right.
Which, like, that's a horrible plan to, like,
Right.
use a sentient person as a tool. But he says this is an elegant plan. It's not vulgar like Clerval, who just wanted fame.
Right.
It's like, at least Clerval wanted to control his own destiny. Like, that's, whether fame is a good thing or not, like, Clerval wanted to do things himself, and I would say what Polidori wants to do is much more vulgar.
Right, yeah, exactly. But we ain't got time for that, because you know who we have? We have Miss Duval showing up in her Bo Peep outfit.
That was...
What?
Like, they just decided, like, we need some little moments of levity, so let's get this kind of, like, drunk, wacky lady to show up in one scene in each part of the miniseries.
Yeah, and she's like, I thought you would... I'm surprised I didn't get my invitation. I thought this was going to be a costume ball.
Yeah, and she's like, you think people will notice? Maybe I still look and she's like straight up little Bo Peep,
Right,
she's got the bonnet, she's got the
crook.
shepherd's crook, like the whole deal.
Yep, it's amazing.
Then we see, like, there's just, it's a ball, people are dancing, and can I cut in, that kind of just normal ball behavior. Then, like, Prima starts doing like a solo dance,
Right.
and everybody's just watching her, which seems strange, but I guess it's part of like the debutante thing, like maybe she has to do a little performance or something.
Well, I think Victor actually calls out, those were ballerina legs, weren't they?
But then in the middle of her dance, the creature just strolls in, and now he's more monstrous than ever because he's hideously burned from the lab.
Right.
His face is like peeling away and scabbed at points and blistered and everything.
So truly looking monstrous in this case.
Yeah, and he starts going towards Prima because like she's his bride or whatever he imagines.
Right. He wants her, of course.
And we get a great little nod back to James Whale's Bride of Frankenstein because she like hisses at him.
Right,
like
and she tries to claw him.
Yeah. Then like it looks like they want to fight each other.
Right.
But like everybody at the party just kind of tries. It's like in middle school and two kids want to fight. And like
fight.
You've got other kids like hold me back, and they're like pulling them off of each other.
Right. But of course, general chaos breaks out.
Yeah, of course. And the creature is too strong to be held back, so he is smashing stuff. He's physically throwing people across the room. And he manages to get back to her and pulls the choker off of her neck. And so then everybody in the crowd sees that she's got this, defined scar around her neck. Mm-hmm. And so there's kind of like what's going on? And then, as if that wasn't enough, the creature just pulls her head off.
Right, just starts ripping the head off. And when he's done pulling it off, he just drops it at Polidori's feet. Like, here you go, buddy.
Yeah. So at this point, everybody just kind of takes off, like all the party goers. Mm-hmm. And we get this moment where like Polidori and Victor are both just like weeping at what's happened. But, like, it's clearly for very different reasons. Like, Polidori has just lost
his meal ticket.
Tool he needed to, for his world domination plan.
Right.
And Victor is just, like, kind of shell-shocked by, like, what has all happened with his creation and his plan. He had this partner that he had created that was a friend and more, possibly, and this is where things have led. Right.
He kind of betrayed him, but, of course, it's too late for that.
Yeah. And Victor even, like, looks at the creature and is like, why is this where things went? Mm-hmm. And the creature's like, beautiful, Victor, beautiful.
Right.
Presumably referring to Prima, that like she was beautiful and didn't deserve to be, but also just that like he's not beautiful, and because of that, this is the only way he knows how to be in the world anymore.
Right. Well, we cut to the next day. There's a constable talking. Turns out that only 3 of those people died, but 10 were seriously injured.
It's one of those deals where, like, he's asking them, but really, like, they're too wealthy for anything to happen to them. So basically, he's like, what's the story? You tell me, right. You tell me what we're going to go with here, because obviously your family kind of runs things around here.
Right. And they even mentioned that they got Polidori. They have arrested him. They're going to put him in an institution.
Yeah, because, like, Elizabeth is like, it's all Polidori's fault. And he's like, okay, well, he's already institutionalized. He's telling us crazy stuff.
Right.
That he made Prima out of a corpse.
Right. And then, of course, Victor's like, no, he's just a madman. He's crazy. Don't listen to him. The thing that was there was a creature. I made it out of parts of Oh. And then everyone's like, yeah.
So, yeah, Victor is now trying to take the blame. Mm-hmm. And Elizabeth's like, don't listen to Victor. He's ill, but we're taking care of him. This is a family matter, basically.
By the way, this is where Liz gets to come into her own. I keep calling her Liz. Elizabeth comes into her own because, she steps up and she's like, hey, listen, my dad, he put you into this position, so let's just go with Victor feeling a little under the weather. And Polidori's crazy.
Yeah, and she's like, if you look around, I think Polidori even has a criminal record, so this is open and shut. And then, assuming, you scratch our back on this, my dad will continue to scratch yours, and you'll stay in your position, and everybody will be happy.
Yeah. Just remember, he had a couple places in Germany, Spain, France, he was arrested in all those places. Remember that. Okay.
Yeah, and so the constable's like, okay, gotcha, and he leaves. So then we cut away to Victor and Elizabeth. They've boarded a ship.
They're going to America.
Yeah, they're like, we're going to start a new life in America. It's going to be, they're going to live the American dream, basically.
Yeah.
But then as the boat has left the harbor, they're out on the sea, and turns out Polidori's there.
Hey, what are you doing there? Well, it turns out that he knows the captain, and it turns out that the captain served some time in Germany, a couple places in Germany, France, and Spain. Yeah. So he knows what's up.
Yeah, and Elizabeth's like, but I thought, you were under arrest. And he's like, if a mere woman can manipulate the constable,
this bastard,
I think I can handle the constable.
Right, yeah. What an asshole.
Yeah, he sucks.
Yep.
But there's this weird sort of like, he's just so used to being in control and everybody doing what he wants that he has a hard time understanding how to deal with Victor. Because he's just like, once we get to America, we can get back to work. We can start a new creature. This will all start again. And Victor's like, no, I'm not working with you anymore. Like, right. Fuck you.
Right.
And Polidori just doesn't, I don't know if it's that he doesn't have the self-awareness to realize that he's not welcome to Victor, or if he's just like, I'm just going to bulldoze through because I can.
I feel like it's that one because, like, in that same sentence, he's basically like, yeah, you're saying these words, but here's what we're going to do. Once we get to New York, we're going to leave immediately for Philadelphia. They're working on a lot of cool chemicals there. We'll start right back up from scratch. Yeah, it is basically like he's ignoring everything that Victor says. But of course, here's a really cool interaction that they have. They sit down at a chess table, being Elizabeth and Victor, while Polidori's kind of walking around. Then after they have that little exchange, he looks down and he just takes one of Elizabeth's pieces to kind of underscore that he is the puppet master or the chess master of this, and moves it into place, basically checking Victor's king. And he's like, checkmate, done. And so
yeah, and so then we find out that there's another stowaway on the ship.
Yeah, peeping out from the lifeboat is the creature.
He like climbs over onto the main deck. But he's not seen at first, and he like sneaks below deck, kind of walks around. He sees a world map on the wall, and you see that like up to the north, it just says uncharted territories.
Right, in the North Pole. And of course, the creature must be a big fan of Santa Claus because he's really enraptured with that area.
Mm-hmm. So then we cut away to Elizabeth and Victor. They're arguing. Polidori showing up has like caused some tension between them. They're trying to figure out how to handle that. Mm-hmm. They're not exactly on the same page. Elizabeth leaves and goes to find Polidori to confront him.
Yeah, but she manages to go downstairs and she sees a mirror that reveals that something else is in Polidori's room, namely the creature.
Yeah, and it's great. Like she sees it, it's like at an angle thing through like a crack in the door. Mm-hmm. So she sees the creature, he doesn't see her, and so she just pulls the door closed, and it's there's like a lock on the or the key to the lock's on the outside, so she locks him in.
Mm-hmm. And that's when Polidori shows up.
So Polidori is like, "What are you doing? Like, what are you messing with my room?" And so she's like, "Well, this kind of works out." So she lets him in, and then also locks the door behind him. So now Polidori is trapped in his room with the creature.
Right. And of course he doesn't like that because the first thing the creature says is, Polly Dolly.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the creature already. It was displaying some violent tendencies, but now we know if like Clerval is driving, definitely Polidori is in trouble. Mm-hmm. So Polidori starts like calling for help.
Victor.
Yeah, and Victor does come, and Elizabeth's like just. Yeah, this is our chance. Yeah. Like, just leave him in there, and probably the creature's going to kill Polidori. But either way, one of them's going to get killed, and that's one less problem for us to deal with.
Right. But of course, Victor. I mean, even earlier they had a little discussion where Polidori was like, "Listen, you think Victor loves you more? No, he loves this thing more than you." Underscoring that the creature's kind of his real love.
Yeah. So Victor lets them out, unlocks the door, and then they all go up onto the main deck. And there is a huge lightning storm.
Hey, you know who doesn't like huge lightning storms?
Yeah, Polidori just like freaks out right away. Mm-hmm. We mentioned earlier in the previous section that like Clerval was kind of, making fun of Polidori's fear of lightning. And I don't know if you remember, like I was just editing our previous episode, and you specifically said his fear of electricity, it'll get him one day, I'm sure.
It's like, I know what was going on. Nah.
Yeah, and yep, so indeed, Polidori is scared. He's trying to get back below deck, but the creature just like ties him up to, one of the like, mast ropes or whatever.
Yeah, mocking him the entire time, by the way.
Yeah, the creature is just like laughing his ass off at this whole thing, and Polidori, James Mason is an amazing actor. Like, he's probably the most well-known actor from this, and there's a reason, because like his fear in this is like palpable. Like, he is losing it.
Right.
And the creature like uses like the pulley system or whatever, and like raises Polidori up way up into the sails and everything, like closer to the lightning.
Right.
And yeah, he's obviously like escalating in fear as this is going on.
Well, like, it shows you how much, like, in the previous few scenes, he is the guy who is in control in all situations. And now he is not, and he is not enjoying it at all. Because he's literally, like, crying out, please, anybody, help me. Literally, anybody.
Yeah, I mean, he's begging for his life. And, like, like you said, like, he's always been in control, and he's always very cool and calm. And here, it is the complete opposite. Like, he's just completely unhinged. Yeah, it's just, like, abject terror. And so the creature climbs up into the rigging with him and just is, like, laughing and mocking him completely. Just pointing and laughing at him as he's absolutely afraid. And Victor starts to kind of climb up after to help to try to figure something out.
Right.
But before he can get there,
he gets bonked on the head.
Yeah. Victor gets hit and falls. It's like a one of the, I don't know what they're called, but it's like those big heavy pulley things with a hook that you see on ships. So Victor's down for the count.
Don't worry about that, because Captain Doctor Who is there, Tom Baker, and he's going to try and save Polidori. But
it's Tom Baker?
Yeah, it's Tom Baker.
I didn't even recognize him. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool that he's just, pops up in several of our Frankenstein movies.
Yeah, but only for a little bit.
Yeah. We have Patrick Troughton too, so lots of Doctor Who stuff in these Frankenstein movies. But he doesn't end up making it up either, and Polidori gets struck by lightning
and just turns into a skeleton. I love it. Not a burnt corpse, just skeleton.
Yeah, immediately.
Right.
After that, then the creature sees that Victor has been knocked out, and so he climbs back down really quickly because he still is connected to Victor. So he picks up Victor and carries him to his room, and that's the captain follows to rescue Victor.
I do love that he's like, hey, all right, everybody, every one of the crew members, we're going to open this door and we're going to rush the monster. And literally no one is about this. They're like, no, you can rush him by yourself.
Yeah. So yeah, they all jump in life rafts. They're just like, see you later.
Oh, yeah. By the way, did you hear what he, yells out? I'm like, what the fuck? As he's lowering the raft, he's like, what the hell? We're heading back to England. Bly did it, so can I. What? Yeah. I mean, I get he's talking about Captain Bly, but it's like, why? That was a random thing. I feel like Tom Baker just wanted to add that in for the culture, Yeah. It's like, it was a fact that he knew he kept it on the back burner. He just wanted to scream something out about it. And the director was like, listen, Tom, all right, man, you're kind of a big deal, I guess, at this time. Or maybe, he's probably a big deal at this time. So he's like, whatever, man, go for it.
So then the captain, follows the creature. He he shoots him, and it has zero effect. Mm-hmm. So then the creature, and does he end up killing the captain?
No, that's why I said I thought we skipped that.
The captain goes with the crew. Okay, I was thinking that the crew left and abandoned the captain.
No, they were just getting ready.
Have it a little mixed up there, but so they've abandoned everybody,
right?
And it's just down to Polidori's gone, so we basically just have Victor, Elizabeth,
and the monster.
But it seems like Victor he's not doing well, so the creature leaves him in his room and goes to is it just called a wheel? Is there a better name for the boat wheel? Yes. I'm really revealing how much I don't know about boats in this episode.
Yes, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. Hold on a second. I mean, it is literally the steering wheel.
Regardless, he sets it to be headed north. He looks on the compass and, aims the boat north and then, lashes the wheel so that it's not going to turn.
Helm. It's called the helm.
Helm, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a term you hear, but I didn't realize it referred to the wheel.
Yeah.
Then Elizabeth confronts the creature. She's obviously upset about everything how it's all played out.
Right. She tries to rebuke him in the name of God, the Almighty. Bad call.
And, yeah, it does not work out. He just strangles her immediately.
Right. He's like, do you presume to have authority of the Almighty over me?
Yeah. So then we just, basically at this point we've got Victor in his, preferred state of coma.
Right.
And the creature, heading towards the north. So it kind of is leading us to the same end that we get in the book where, Victor and the creature are alone in the Arctic, but we're just taking a very different route to get there.
Right.
And so eventually Victor does wake and he's alone. He walks out of the room calling for Elizabeth, and you could tell he's cold, you can see his breath and everything.
Yeah.
And then he gets out onto the deck.
Frozen
and sees, over. Yeah, Elizabeth is just Jack Torrance in The Shining, just frozen solid. Then he doesn't see it, he's just abandoned on this boat, but then he sees that there's snow on the deck, and there are footprints leading overboard.
Right, and they seem to be stuck in an ice field, basically. And who's that out there on the ice field? Hey, that's the creature.
Yeah, so he's out in the distance, almost to the horizon, and you just got his footprints leading out there. And so Victor, of course, follows. Off in the distance, we see there's a sort of an ice mountain or something,
right.
The ice cave that we see in a lot of adaptations of this. So Victor eventually gets to the cave, and the creature's already there waiting for him, and he asks the creature's forgiveness. Everything kind of fell apart at this this final moment. Victor is kind of trying to own up to his mistakes.
Well, he even says listen, at this point I'm going to die out here because I'm just a human. and you're unfortunately going to be just stuck out here for eternity.
Mm-hmm.
So let's make amends at this point.
Yeah.
Because I didn't mean to basically be a shitty dad / husband to you.
Yeah. And the creature's kind of like, he's listening, but he's kind of not responsive or whatever. And so Victor sort of yells, "Forgive me."
Yeah.
And then we hear some kind of cracking and rumbling. And they sort of both realize at once, like, oh, this is the way that we can go out together on our own terms.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I love what the creature says at this point. It's like, oh, okay, so now I won't be alone forever. We'll both be gone together. Bravo, Victor. Bravo.
Yeah. And so they both kind of just like laugh and hug each other. And it, you know, it's a really sad, tragic moment, but it's like a sort of like beautifully tragic moment where like all these things have gone wrong, and you know they were so in love, and then their relationship fell apart. But now in their last moment, they're kind of getting like a Romeo and Juliet moment where they're gonna like get to go out together.
Yeah.
And sure enough, the ice cave kind of collapses, and then we cut to like a faraway shot that not only did it collapse, but it falls into the ocean.
And that's our abrupt ending.
Yep, that's how they're gone. Everybody in this movie has died, so there's not really any need for a little, you know, epilogue or whatever. Nope. Like there's no one left to follow at this point. So yep, abrupt ending for everybody.
Yeah, basically. So let's I mean, this underscores that the creature was Victor's like real love and only love. Like, unfortunately with Elizabeth it wasn't quote unquote real, unfortunately, but she felt it was real. But as Polidori mentioned, no, he loves the creature, not you. You come second.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely felt like not too different from like how things probably would have played out in this time period in real life. You know, like if you got a gay man who's in love with, you know, another man, like they might have their relationship, but like at the end of the day, there's going to be the marriage with the, you know, the heterosexual, you know, heteronormative marriage.
Right.
So that's, yeah, like obviously, like Elizabeth is the beard. She just doesn't know she is.
Right. Oh, yeah, that's rough.
And it's unfortunate for her too, because like, especially near the end of this, where we finally get to really spend some time with Elizabeth, she's brilliant. Like she's really smart. She's tenacious. Like she stands up for herself and for her relationship, whether it's Prima or Polidori or the creature at the end when like she has no chance. She's, you know, she's a very strong woman who like knows what she wants.
Yeah.
And due to circumstances of the society that they live in, she's not really given the opportunity to have the life that she deserves.
Yeah. And she definitely deserved a better one than this, but you know, we wouldn't have a story if that were the case.
True. Yeah, so this, you know, like I think, you know, we've been comparing this to the Dan Curtis one and everything. And I still think for as far as like a Frankenstein story, I prefer the Dan Curtis one.
Yeah.
But this still is like a really powerful story, and it's just, I mean, you know, as we keep saying, it is a gay romance that's a tragedy. I mean, it feels Shakespearean, you know, it's like these star-crossed lovers, basically, you know.
I could definitely see why it outshone the Dan Curtis version, right? Because that one looked like basically we recorded a play.
Yeah.
Whereas this one is a big budget.
Not only like it's these really big grand sets, whether it's like the big ball in this, you know, huge ballroom, or even like Victor's lab that was huge and lavish and really complicated, and then they redressed the set and did it all over again for Polidori's lab. Like, yeah, I mean, like this clearly had a much bigger budget, and they put it to really good use.
Yes, they did. And the actors on top of that, I'm not trying to disparage the actors in the Dan Curtis version, but these are actors.
Yeah, like these are the big name actors, and you know, I mean, like they're well known and also just, you know, incredibly talented.
Absolutely.
So it is really interesting that these came out in the same year. It's unfortunate for the Dan Curtis one because I think it would have done better had it come out with a little bit more distance between them. But it's really like to think about like that year, you know, 1974, whatever's going on in the world, and what like these two interpretations are so drastically different in their scope, in the way that they're filmed, in the message that the creators are trying to put across. You know, like they're clearly taking the Frankenstein story and spinning it in, you know, for their own ends, and they're so drastically different.
Right.
Which, you know, is something that I've continued to realize as we've watched all these and as we've read the book, that's what makes this book so
powerful.
Give it such staying power. Is that it has enough little gaps it's got a really strong foundation, and then it's got gaps here and there where like different people can take it in different directions, and yeah, it's going to live forever because of that, because everybody's always going to have a new way to interpret that depending on their personal biases and the society that they live in at that time. And yeah, it's just it's really cool. Even in this case where you've got like at the same time, it's still very different.
Right. Yeah. Like we said with the guys when we were on the last book on the shelf. Basically, there's enough vagueness where you could insert anything you really want to in certain parts, and you can shuffle it around to tell whatever story you want. So yeah, absolutely. That's why we love it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's why creators keep coming back to it, and that's why fans like us keep coming back to it as well.
That's right. This well has no end,
and we're very happy for that.
Right. Job security, baby. All right. So yeah, Anthony, where can they find us?
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram and Letterboxd and YouTube.
Hey!
I keep forgetting some of those.
We're at the Frankencast.
At the Frankencast. You can also email us at thefrankencast@gmail.com. And, most importantly, you can find us at patreon.com/thefrankencast.
Yeah. We need funding for our evil schemes and to do more crazy schemes.
Yeah, and just knowing that people are getting something out of this to the point that they want to invest in us continue to do this. It's exciting for us. It makes us want to keep doing more. It makes us want to expand this in different ways. So if you've been listening this whole time and you like what we're doing, and you're financially able, the support means a lot. And if you give back to us, we'll definitely give much more to you in return. We're basically, for $3 or $5 a month, you're going to basically double the amount of material you're getting from us every month.
Yeah. So if you like it a little bit, you're going to get a lot.
Yeah, and it's a more freeform place where we can do a lot of different stuff and interact with you all a little more and see what excites you all about the Frankenstein story and what you'd like to hear us talk about.
Absolutely. And also, if you don't have the monetary ability to go to the Patreon, just interact with us on all those platforms that you can. Basically, that tells that evil algorithm that runs our world, basically that we're worth your time.
Yeah, and whether you can donate or not, like we're still thrilled to talk to anybody who's enjoying what we're doing. So you're definitely still welcome to chat. We'll talk about Frankenstein to anyone who will ask.
Absolutely, and for as long as they want.
Yeah. By the time this one comes out, the episode from last book on the shelf will have been out for about a week. But yeah, if you haven't caught that yet, friend of the pod, Hayden has a show that's like a book club. And we just recorded an episode last night where we talked about Mary Shelley's novel for like a full 3 hours. So if that sounds like something you'd like, definitely go check that out. They are a lot of fun to talk to. We had a great time chatting with them.
Yeah, it was
we think you'll enjoy it as well.
Yeah, it was kind of amazing. Speaking of that, let's talk about our Patreon patrons. Of course, we do have Hayden Orr.
Yeah. So, we've got Hayden, and he's been with us from day one, been a big supporter, and we really appreciate that. Then we also have Santos, who's been with us pretty early on as well, and he's always kind of reaching out to us with little just clips and things he finds along the way. He just yesterday sent us and we were trying to come up with casting for the It's Alive movie,
right?
And he had a good pull for a Bela Lugosi because we couldn't think of one. There's an actor, I don't know exactly how it's pronounced, it's like Claes Bang, Claes. He played Dracula in like a Netflix miniseries, and like he does have a very Lugosi look to him. Like he would be a great pick for that. So that was a good pull from Santos.
Yeah, I backed that up. I could see it.
Yeah. So thank you to you guys, and to anybody else who's interested. We've got a little teaser trailer here in the main feed. Check it out, and if that sounds like something you'd be into, we'd love to have you there.
Hey, Anthony. I'm feeling a little weird, man. I think we should do some weird science.
Yeah. So after we did this kind of, long, more serious kind of ponderous. We're kind of trying to do a little contrast with what we're doing. So yeah, next week after we've done this movie from the 70s, we're going straight into the 80s with the John Hughes classic teen Frankenstein movie,
right?
Weird Science.
I mean, this is an 80s comedy, so prepare yourself for some tasteless jokes.
Yeah, there's going to be plenty of that. It's surprisingly not quite as offensive as you'd think it would be, but it is still, it is still two teenage boys creating basically a sex robot. So
and wearing bras on their
head. There's going to be a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be a good time. We'll have fun with that one. So yeah, definitely join us next week for Weird Science.
Yeah. And as always, to be continued.
Looks like you survived another episode. The Frankencast is a production of FCR Media. It's hosted by Anthony Bowman and Eric Velasquez. Follow us on Twitter at The Frankencast, or send us a letter at thefrankencast@gmail.com. Our cover art is by Amanda Keller. You can find her at Keller Illustrations on Instagram. Our theme music is by Vivek Abhishek. Thanks for listening.